Let's
recording.
see. Hold on, let me get to gallery view there. Okay, now I don't want, how do I get out of, hold on just a sec.
It should be at the top. It'll be
There, yeah, got it. Okay, so now we're like this, and then I can go in and out.
Okay.
I'll try to be as graceful as I can.
Oh, it's graceful.
I promise nothing.
I read a couple of, I started like I was looking at the book, Art of the Book exhibitions, looking backwards. And there were a couple of interviews with you. And I wanted to tell you that you were described as luminous, bright. I was like,
oh my goodness. They must be old.
No.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, so I'm in the book art program, and I committed. I bought a platen press.
Oh my goodness. That's wonderful.
No, so I'm over here in Richmond in the garage storage and art space. Have you heard of it?
No, is that where your studio is?
Yeah.
Where your platen press is?
Yes. Yeah, it's very cool. I'll show you.
That's so exciting, Tony. Oh my God. That isn't it a wonderful thing, a press? Having your own press. Oh my God. Yeah, that is amazing. You'll have a lot of fun playing with that.
Yeah, and the Hicks brothers who moved it, who were quite characters, and wonderful, wonderful gentlemen. And they said, well, you have to name it. And I said, oh, of course. And so now I'm really worried about naming it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you've been doing this. I've followed you so long, and it's just been so beautiful to see your career, and you stayed so steady and excellent, and you bring so much to Mill Valley. So I guess, do you want me to go through the questions, or what are you most comfortable with? And
we can go through the questions, and then we can get loose and diverge if we do. But I did answer the questions, and yeah, it'll take. Yeah, let's go. When I start sharing screens and things, it may change the form, but it'll all be good.
That's good.
So go ahead with it.
So greatest life influencers and folks of books and art events that inspire you right now.
Okay. I started with going back in the beginning, and as boring as it may be, like so many young people in high school, my toe into loving art was the Impressionists, and I had read Charmed Circle, which is a book about Gertrude Stein and her marvelous salons she had at her Rue de Fleur apartment, and that Picasso was there and Matisse was there, and so were amazing writers as well, and Hemingway, and that really caught my imagination, all of it. Paris, books, art, and so that was really the beginning. It was like, yeah, I want to be like that. I want to be around art and artists and writers, and I don't think it ever occurred to me to have a corporate job, so also I always say that my life is two lives. One is the life I live, and one is the one I live in books, and all the characters and poems and information and pictures and everything else that are in those books are as much a part of my life as my physical life. And I cannot imagine a life without them. So when I went to college, I majored both in English and art history. And that was my beginning. And it's just grown from there. When I first started, I actually wanted to write about art. And I did do that and do that sometimes. But I learned very quickly that I wouldn't make a living doing that. And then once I started working for galleries, I found that curation is a kind of self-expression, that if I had an art form, it would be putting together shows. And that became something that I love, and I get to write about it. Ha.
I know you're all over the place. I saw so many jury shows and the curatorial, and yeah.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of opportunities in many ways. But one of the luckiest ways, I want to keep referring this back to books, because I do have this other painting,
Right.
sculpture, materials thing, but for this purpose, I thought it was mostly about books. And I want to say that the community of people who are the people who make books are some of the most, I could almost get teary, evolved, interesting, cooperative, and supportive group of people that I know. And my entry into it without being book artist, I feel, is just hugely fortunate. And I know your questions spoke to that as well. So that's where I might veer a little bit, but I wanted to speak to that. First of all, is that there are what I call the people of the book, and these are my people. And whether they're book readers, book makers, binders, letterpress people, print makers, paper makers, the whole deal. These are the people of the book, and they are a wonderful tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've been astonished to find it's like landing in a new country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where they actually more often speak the same language, even though they process it in their own books. Every person's book has its own way of thinking. Like once you begin to follow a book artist, you begin to understand how their personal aesthetic works. And it's fascinating. It's endlessly fascinating. So,
And there's so many variations of. I mean, it's interesting learning about the history of the book, and then the art of the book, and then book art, and it's still so much in flux. I feel like it's at another kind of fork in the road in some ways. I mean, I think those probably always are all over the place, but yeah. And because we talk about what makes it a book now, and Julie's always saying, what do you want the viewer to experience? And her books are very much about that.
right. Well, Julie, she's like one of my first or second slides, and I have a lot of Julie because Julie Chen has, I mean, she uses all the classical book art crafts and abilities, but she changes structure in a way that gives a whole new understanding of how a book can be. It's usually in one thing, but you may open it in different ways, and I'm going to show you some examples of that. In fact, I think my first slide is that. So what I come down to is a book is a form to hold meaning.
Oh, I like that.
And that meaning can be expressed in all kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So and it does not have to always be the Codex, the classical Codex form. There are many ways to play with it. And I have a lot of slides that might show you that. Why don't I share something with you now? See, shall I go to the slideshow? I think I'll start with sharing. I have the catalog. After showing these books for 10 years, I had the real privilege of being asked by the Brooklyn Public Library to curate a show called 10 Years of Artist Books. And this is the catalog of that. And I thought this would be a good place for us to go, because in that, I was trying to pick some of my favorites of the 10 years before. So I thought it would sift through some things for you to see. So this is actually the catalog.
Oh.
But I am going to go, oops, if I can turn the page. Uh-oh, here we go. Come on. Huh, hold on, I'm having trouble getting the page turned on it. Well, good thing I have two different presentations. Here we go. Huh. For some reason, the page isn't turning, which I will try to figure out a little later. But in the meantime, I can use my slide presentation to show you some things. And I'm going to go back to this one because I want to go. I know the second one I have is Julie Chen, and I want to continue that conversation a little bit. This is one of the first books I showed by Julie Chen, and it is an edition that is called True to Life. And I still love this book. I curated a show a couple of years ago for the Sun Valley Writers Conference, and I showed this book again, and people loved it so much, and so do I. And if you look, can you see it? Mm-hmm. You're not seeing the screen share? Oh, resume share. Okay, let's see. Hold on, sorry. I'll make this work.
Try view options.
Do you have resume? I'm seeing it on mine. Can you go up to your little, like you have gallery view or speaker view?
Uh-huh.
What do you have on that?
I have, swap your screen with video. Should I do that?
It's screen share.
No,
I don't know. Let's figure it out. So you are not seeing my screen share.
I'm seeing 10 years of artist books.
Okay, and then I changed the screen share. Okay, so what did okay, I think I know. Okay, now it's back to, okay, now.
10 years of artist books.
And it's still not turning, darn it. Okay, sorry. How about new share? And I go to this. Now do you see something different?
Yes.
Okay, there's Julie, True to Life. I'm so glad that we fixed that out. These are three different views of the book. And this was what, the first time I saw this is so extraordinary. Each one of the little tabs on the side pull up, and the little strip reveals different texts and changes the patterns of this beautiful printmaking she's done. And so what happens, you can go in many different ways and the text will change, but the text is about how things happen to our life to change the way we think about different things. Or you plan on doing this, but it turns out being different. And the various images in the prints have different meanings, like moments of joy, confusion of things, and it is life, wow. In a book, and in true Julie Chen perfection fashion, like each of the little tabs is wood. She has this little, like when you lift the book object up, there's a little easel that it sits on. So of course you can show it. I mean, there is nothing left behind, but if you look at the skills we're talking about here, and Julie Chen is what I call a soup to nuts kind of book artist. She does it all.
Yeah. There's
binding, there's letterpress, there's writing, there's printmaking, there's construction. It is, amazing what she accomplishes. And when I first saw this, to me, there is no question, is it a book?
Right.
It's a book. I mean, if you look at the cover of it, it looks like this, then it is in a bound box. But it expands your mind the minute you see it, because it's such a special edition.
Wow.
I wanted to show you the one I have before that is
Codes. I took printmaking with her way back.
Oh,
my kids were born with Eleanor Rapp at Fort Mason.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yes, I have prints.
Yeah, she's amazing. This book called A Diary of a Sparrow was commissioned by the Museum of Women in the Arts, and it was in my very first show, and I have a copy, and I am so proud of it. And when you pull that book out from the center, it is makes these square kind of almost rooms, and the story is the story of her grandfather, who lived in a tiny village in Japan and never really left there. So it's the view of the world from her grandfather. And a sparrow happens to be a bird that never flies more than a couple of miles from the place it was born. So that's why he's the sparrow. And each of these prints, he's going through the history of Japan and the war with China and losing his sons. And each little part are like a group of years in his life. So it's just a gorgeous interpretation of life. And it is as though you walk from room to room to room. You're a young man, you're middle-aged, you're getting older, you know, so the metaphors keep going on. And in the end, her grandfather is sitting out in the courtyard, and his friend is coming to sit to listen to the first ever broadcast of a young President Kennedy giving an address. And the last part of the book is, "Have you heard?" And Kennedy was, of course, assassinated. Makes me cry right now. You know? And it's so beautifully done. And that was the end. It was so sad for her grandfather when that happened, that he didn't write in his diary any longer. And what a book. And the writing of it is so beautiful. I mean, it's just an exquisite book. You know, I don't want to take all our time talking about one book, but isn't it amazing? You know, and the printmaking, here again, it is a beautiful structure, beautifully done, printmaking, writing. The cover of the book is made with, here I can go back this way to show you that. It's brushed with a fermented persimmon juice, and we'll see this later on in places. That's something that actually patinas with age, but it's used in Japan also for screens because it repels bugs and moisture. So you'll find, I think I have a Carol Lee Campbell book later that uses that as well. It's a wonderful thing, but the book actually gets more and more beautiful, you know, over time. So
Gorgeous story and
yeah, isn't that great? Why don't I show you some more of those, since I know there's some up. There's Julie. I probably have more. I do have more, Julie. This is Peter Koch, and this is one of my favorite books ever. And it is called The Lost Journals of Sacagawea, which is a beautiful poem about the, you know, end of the buffalo and the end of the Indian way of life. It's gorgeously done with beautiful photographs. I think I have, oops, I have another photo later on I'll show you, but the photographs are almost transparent across the text. And this outside covering, I'll show you a little later when I'm back on the slideshow, I'll show you a little bit more, feels like the hide of a buffalo, do you know?
yeah.
And the poem reads so beautiful with all these beautiful pictures of Indians, really historic pictures of Indians, and you feel the loss of that culture after you read that book. You absolutely can feel it.
Mm.
And I want to say a little bit about Peter Koch because he's a hero in the book arts world. He's always been a book printer, but he was part of the driving force for Codex. And Codex is a fair, an international book arts fair that happens every other year. And it has been my great privilege with all these amazing book artists to be in it every time. So it's every other year. And you can't even begin to imagine the richness that happens there. So any of whoever you share this with, you don't want to miss that. You cannot find a larger congregation of book artists. Okay, so this is an artist from South Africa, and in my shows, the shows are always called books, altered books, and book-related arts. And so I do have a large history with artists who are making things out of books. And this one happens to be Barbara Wildenboer. She's in South Africa, and she's what is really what I call a crossover artist, because she operates both in the book world and the fine art world, and she's collected. And I want to talk about that a little bit later, but I just wanted to show one of these altered books where she's taking the pages and making them look like mycelia coming out of the book. This one is
Those
the
are
home.
pages.
Yeah, those are all parts of the book. There's nothing there. It's the book, the whole book, and nothing but the book, you know, in her. And I just love the work that she does. Do you know, for let's see, I can keep doing there. Oh, there's another beautiful book by her, which is on birds. And when you actually see it, the little inserts have little pictures of birds in them, and they come framed, and she's pretty amazing. I wanted to go back to your question. You were asking about how did I get involved in books, I think was one of your questions you had wanted to ask me. Do you want to?
I think it was.
How did my annual Art of the Book show begin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to that because there are characters that'll show up on some of these slides. Let me go back to our gallery view. Here we go. And that is that I was showing an artist by the name of Kay Bradner, who's a marvelous printmaker. And she introduced me to Charles Hobson. And Charles Hobson was teaching book arts at the Art Institute at the time, and is also an amazing collector of artist books. And this was exactly 16 or so years ago, a little bit more. And he started pulling out all these artist books that he had collected. He has a tremendous collection. He's a big supporter. And at the end of that session, I was just like, oh my God, you know, I had what I like to call that museum feeling, you know, when you know something is, I mean, sometimes you don't always even get it in a museum, you know, you know, but when it happens, that feeling of something rich, sort of like a fist in your gut. And so I knew right then that I was going to do a book show. And so he gave me a list of Bay Area artists involved in the book, and it is all the greats. You know, I think Julie Chen was my first visit, but I literally got in my car and visited every one of them. I visited Kazuko Watanabe, I visited Julie Chen, Elisa Golden, Marie Dern. You're going to see these names again. That's why I wanted to preface it with that. And Charles. And I also went to the San Francisco Center for the Book, where Rhiannon Alpers at the time was a project manager for all of their editions they were making themselves there. And they do tremendous exhibitions there. And I later was on the board for a couple of years of the San Francisco Center for the Book. So here was this like crevice opening up and gold ore inside it, you know, of Bay Area book arts and the community that they are. And I have never looked back. I'm forever grateful for that.
Well, your show stands out. I mean, there are not that many. I wasn't quite sure because is it because there is a crossover, or are there people that don't have the shows? Like I went over to Arion Press to see the Hand Binders show,
Yeah.
but what you like, your list of names of book artists are like, you know, that's the cream of the world, you know. And so are you unique in that way as a gallery?
This is why I wanted to go back to that question almost, is that I had two goals. And I keep those there stated, and this is what I want. I would love for people who make books, book artists, altar bookmakers, to have the same name recognition as any other fine artist, whether they're a sculptor or painter or anything else. Because within the book world, we all know each other and we know who the superstars are. But outside of that, you know, I wanted it to be shown no different, not as a subset, no different than the fine art that I show the rest of the time. It is, to me, fine art. There is no distinction.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted was that, and I wanted to bring in folks that are in the fine art world but work with books, because that gave me the eyes of collectors. But as I started doing it, the artists started coming to me, you know. And so I got so many choices, you know. And I was able to, because they don't have that many places to show, but also as I've kept doing it, I built a following, and so I had collectors, you know. And you got to have collectors, and collectors in a fine art gallery, you know, in the book world, you know, getting 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 even for a book is heard of. You know, but sometimes I'll have a book like Kazuko Watanabe's book has probably 12, 13 prints in it or more, do you know? And at the gallery I can sell a print, a frame print, for $2,500, but I can't sell a book full of them always for that same amount. And I would like to see that change, and it has changed to some degree, because a lot of artists have kind of gone beyond, they're collected more widely, and they've started to get that name recognition that I do believe they've earned.
When you show them, like, that brings me, so Kazuko's, you know, if she had a print up, then that's one thing, but for her book, you probably, that book you probably display open, correct? But
Right.
But books are so, one of the things that's so wonderful about them is their physicality.
Yes.
And so to show them in the gallery, that's a challenge sometimes, I guess, huh?
It is a challenge, and I've done the thing where I give everybody gloves. I've done the thing where I try to display them as much as I can. Often what I do is I show them the books, you know, if you really want to see a book further, because, you know, that was one of the problem was with handling. But often some artists now, and this is really a recommendation I would make, is to make a handler's copy.
Oh.
So for shows, you know, outside of the edition, make a handler's copy, and we can have fresh wrapped up, you know, piece of the edition and part of the edition there. But with the handler's copy, then I can really show them the rhythm and how the text goes with the form and things like that, you know, more easily, because I always say the best way to experience these books is to own them.
Yeah.
Because they will unfold for you over time. But to get them to that point, you have to be able to show them.
At Codex, what is your position at Codex? Also, I want to put a plug in. I saw The Bookmakers. Have you heard of that? It's a movie for PBS that's just going to air, and it kind of culminates in Codex and has Peter in it and
Oh,
Julie.
seen it. Yeah.
It's really wonderful, and it's by James Kennard, I think, and his father's a photographer as well.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
got to see that.
called The Bookmakers. I'll send it to you afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that probably says everything I would want to say
No,
here.
but it goes to the Codex, and then so like they follow a few artists there, like but what is your role there then?
Well, when they started Codex, it was at Berkeley, at UC Berkeley, and I was an exhibitor. And I'm not the only one that represents books. There's a wonderful away recently, which is very sad for all of us. And they completely show. I'm sorry.
It froze for a second. There.
Oh. There's a thing called Vamp and Tramp, and the two people who run that, he just passed away recently, but they make their whole life going to special collections and selling artist books. And you should look at their website. It's an incredible catalog of almost everybody good doing work there. And so they had a table and I had a table, and I just had a table for I have a table and show artists who don't have a table, you know, and so it gave me the opportunity to show what I do, but also I got to meet the artists, you know, that I got to be in the group and get to meet, and that gave me a chance to shop for things that I would show in my shows.
Yeah. Do you sell to museums or schools or universities, or is that separate through the artists that they do those?
Yeah, I sell to special collections quite a bit. And after this, I'll go back to my slideshow. There are quite a few artists, including Julie and Lisa Koken and some others that I sold to Alan Chazanoff. And he was a really big collector of mostly offbeat books. And his collection was shown. I happen to have the catalog for that show because I'm very proud of it. Odd volumes, and his whole collection went, and it not to the Special Collections Library at Yale, but to their Contemporary Art Museum. Oh. So it is shown as fine art, that it's not just, where you go to see this, the Special Collections Library where you almost have to know about it, but that it has more access to the public as fine art and shown as that. So that was, I was really excited about that. And I'm lucky to have had that opportunity to get to know him, and he would get my catalog. I do a catalog for every show, which is a labor of love, but they live on. And a lot of people collect the catalogs, or I can send them links to the catalog, like the one I'm showing you from 10 Years of Artist Books. And it keeps the show alive. And then sometimes I'll sell books even years past the time that I actually showed them.
Oh, this is so fun.
I know. It's easy, isn't it, to talk about books? Yeah, I know. It's like, what am I worried about? Shall I go back to the slideshow a little bit?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Unless I'm preempting a question you want to ask.
No. I think we're kind of going through all of that. I got so curious about the Bay Area book art community because it seems like it has such a history. And Kathy Walkup said one day, I think it was, she said that it's been said that the Bay Area fog or weather is good for sourdough bread and printing.
Absolutely. I think that was one of the things, there's so many fortunate things, but I do believe that, like I said, the Bay Area is a mother lode of wonderful book arts and history, from Arian Press, the Grabhorn Foundation, one of the oldest long-term continually operating presses, the Center for the Book, the college programs that there are here. And it's a bookstore town. You know, people love books. You know, we love our books and we love our coffee. You know, and the first thing that I noticed when I moved to San Francisco was that there were lots of bookstores, and I think of it as being a very much of a reading kind of community.
Nice. Right. And then the only other things which we will get to some point is the future of the artist and artist book, and any wishes that you would want to expand in your gallery, or anything more that you would want to do. And we can bridge into those anywhere.
You know, I think what I can do is speak to those as we go along, because I did look at that, and I was when I finished with these I was very interested in what is going on with the book now. So I started Googling about that. So I'll talk to that at the end too, because it's really interesting. Here we go. This is Marie Dern. Marie went to Mills and was part of the book arts program there. She passed away during COVID, and it was much a loss for me because she was a dear friend. But this is a book that she did that looks like a tree stump. And she did it with Daniela Guidici Wallace, who is a sculptor who actually knit paper to make the trunk of this tree. And this little sign, Lost Pet Crow, very tame black American crow, blind in one eye, will probably come to you if called. Call this, is a sign that Daniela actually saw. So they considered it a found poem. So and it was on a tree. So they literally took it from that. And so Marie created these soft papers in a kind of accordion kind of fold that would, when you close it, look like the rings of a tree, do you know? But they all come together, and the paper is really soft, and it's an object, it's a sculpture, and it's Marie's both simplicity and humor. And I want to say about her that on Sunday, there was a show planned for her at the Bolinas Art Museum that was postponed because of COVID, and she would have been alive for it had that not happened. It's so sad, but it did open on Sunday, and her kids called me and said it was really amazing. And so there is a beautiful collection of Marie Dern books at the Bolinas Art Museum. I don't remember the end date right now, but you can just Google them. And Marie was the ultimate collaborator. All of them are, one of her best friends was Kay Ryan, the poet. And you're going to see a book that she did with Kay. Almost everything she's done has been with someone very near and dear to her.
Well, I'm going to go out to Bolinas and see that then.
Oh, absolutely. I really recommend it. This is Andrew Hayes, and this is an amazing find for me. I have sold so much of his work, and I love him so much. He was at Penland School of the Arts, and I've gotten other people from Penland as well. And these are book pages with steel. This goes on the wall. And the interesting thing is that the book pages are never glued. He's fanning them out, and then these two little pins hold them to that back place. Do you know, he believes in the fluidity of the book pages. Like if I took my finger and rifled it along the side, it would, would go like book pages. So he uses the book in an entirely different way. And they're very formal, but very beautiful.
Wow.
But what happens for book lovers, they see that book and they still love, it's still that attraction that book lovers have for books. They see the pages, they see the print, and they love it.
Yeah.
This is Valerie Buse, who lives in Germany, who's one of those people who came to me, who was doing incredible things with the book form. And this is like it's called Boycotting Its Original Content. And she took a part of book and made little signatures with the little rolled kind of things. So it's really feathery and beautiful. And I just love them aesthetically.
Yeah.
This is another example of Valerie Buse and how she takes the pages and makes the form. You can see the print there too. And I think the book was on sea anemones, which makes sense, right? And it's called Eventually Alive. So she was a fun find for me. This is Carol Lee Campbell, and her press is called Ninja Press, and she's also part of the people on the board of Codex and a longtime book artist. She lives down in Southern California. And some of my favorite books are handmade books in the service of poetry. And these are poems. And for her, there's a kind of both the poetry and the way she makes the book, I can only describe as sublime. You know, it's just so beautiful, you know, and touching. And on these, she's using salt and ink to make the prints that are in there. And the poems are by Nathaniel Tarn, and they're gorgeous, gorgeous poems about the Persephones. It's sad. I wish on these, I wish I could read you a page or a little snippet, because that makes such a difference, because you can see how the way she handled the material matches the text itself. But I'm not able to do that now. It's gorgeous. Yeah. This is Brian Detmer, and he is definitely in the fine art world. He makes great big excavations of books that are in museums all over the country, and he is kind of the king of that. And this is To Conquer the Ends of the Earth. But the thing about him is he doesn't move anything in the book. It really is, he reveals, like, everything is in exactly the same page as it was in the book. In other words, he's not tearing something out and pasting it before. This is back in the back, and that's where he is. So all of the layers are exactly as those things were in the original book.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine the planning that takes and the precision. And yeah, he does not, it's part of his, you know, a lot of artists will make little parameters for themselves that push them forward. Everything is exactly where it was. So the planning is a huge part of this book.
Wow.
Yeah. He was a Chicago artist, and Chicago also has a wonderful, like a Columbia, Chicago has a wonderful book arts scene as well. This is Clifton Mader, and he is a friend of Julie Chen's, and his books are so intelligent. And I did a special show during the time of Codex with several artists, including him and Julie, and he made an entire curtain that is the text of that book, but it's about cotton, and it is about how the economy of cotton was around slavery and around you know, child labor, and you know, that cotton was king, and it was a very ruthless king. And his book is so much about that, about way different things that people use, or the economy creates cruelty. And it's an amazing text, and he's an amazing teacher. I think he's in Boone, North Carolina now, and teaches, and is a delight to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sarah Brown, and she's from England, and she did a show that was so fascinating to me. It was the history of printing and bookmaking. And this particular book, wait a minute, I have it on here, is 84 Hours. And she read about this guy who was put in prison because he asked for an 3-hour work week rather than an 84-hour work week, and they put him in prison. And so what Sarah did is she got up at 6 a.m. and started binding till 8 p.m. I forget exactly the hours that it was, but she replicated his work week by binding. This is one singular bound long snaky thing. This is 84 hours of binding. Isn't that interesting? It's so fascinating. It's a graph of what an 84-hour work week looked like, but also, come on, 84 hours a week. He was in prison for that. Yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting, basically on binding. This is Rhiannon Alpers, another Bay Area great who I think I said was the project manager for all the books at the Center for the Book, but her interest is so much in botany and plants, and she's done these beautiful little specimen books which will have little windows and the Latin word for them on them. And this is the book that I showed in this is a new book, and it is the story of Jean Beret, who was a naturalist and made a round the world trip from 1766 to 69. So this is a wonderful structure. She used an accordion binding like this so that you can spread it out and see the different plant specimens and how they show. But this little piece also is a magnet, and you can also read it, see how that goes around the edge. So she's got a wonderful structure there and beautiful things, and her letterpress is beyond the pale. It's so beautiful. So I definitely wanted to include her. She does work for people too. She also does letterpress printing in her studio, and she's in San Francisco. This is Macie Chadwick. I don't know if you're familiar with Macie, but Macie was once the assistant to Julie Chen.
Yes.
And she went to the Philadelphia Center School of the Arts, Pennsylvania School of the Arts, which a lot of great bookmakers went to. That's another one of those great programs. And this is called Meanwhile. But so much of Macie's books are with pressure prints, and there were these overlappings and underlappings, and they often are about communication and the place where where you're understanding each other's meanings, and the place where you don't, and how our conversations go in and out, and almost all of her books have this beautiful kind of graphing and understanding of human relationships and conversations. But Macie opened up In Cahoots Press residency, and because I was talking to Mills students, I especially wanted to bring this up because she bought this beautiful piece of land. That's the barn. There's a bindery, a press in there. There is everything, and she has these wonderful little cabins that people have. And this is E. Bond, who is a MFA student from Mills. So I wanted to point her out too, because she did the residency with Macie, and she's incredibly talented. Another shout out to Mills for their part and everything. But and this is Macie in front of one of the little cabins where people get to stay. So she has, I would really recommend this to anybody because Macie knows everybody in the book arts world, and they're coming from all over the country, and they get together, and it's always a unique kind of group, and a small group, not a big group. And she's a great collaborator, and John Demerit, who's one of the great bookbinders in the Bay Area, says this is her calling, that Macie was made to do this, and it's a unique place. There are a lot of artist residencies all over the country, but this one is more focused on books and bookbinding and writing and things that have to do with books. So it's called In Cahoots, if anybody wanted to look it up. is Emily Payne, and I have this up right now in the gallery. And Emily first showed up for me. This is this crossover again. All of these are book covers. Every little bit of it is book covers. There is no paint here. This orange and red and all of this are where she's flipping the book cover and carving into it and over it. These are colors of the inside pages of books. So of the book cover. So everything here is book cover, but then she also makes these amazing wire sculptures, and she draws not the object, but the space between the object in her work, which in graphite. So that's what this is. And she started doing things with these book covers and these objects, and it just kept going further and further until what she developed is really her own very special aesthetic. But it still has that book feeling, the materials of the book, the covers of the book, the cloths and everything else. I think on this one, no, maybe not. On some of them, there's even the little old envelope that you used to put the card in, the library card in. But they're really extraordinary. And she's that crossover that I was talking about. This is another one. This is Kareth Leasy, another Bay Area. I try to focus a lot on Bay Area because there's plenty to go on there. And she's taking those tiny little headbands of hardback books, that little thing that helps hold the binding, that tightly woven cloth. And she sewed them, and they look like an ancient textile. Just
They
that
really do.
one little part of a book that of many of them are really old books. You just sewed them together, and it looks like something ancient and wonderful and little seen. They're small. They're like that big, but aren't they wonderful? It's a whole different, like, what made you think of that? But I love them. I just love the tactile quality, but the tightly woven. And I like stitches. There's a lot of things with stitches and I have too. This is Leslie Pearson. And these are book pages. And it's as though this shape is the binding. It's just crazy. It's called a lining. And she was in see there you can see how she's taken every little book page and created this form into a sculpture. I thought that was interesting too. Hold on just a minute. I'm gonna go back to my other share and show you some of the other books. Can you see?
I can see. What I'm worried about is if all of a sudden I realized if this goes, if we time out for some reason, I'll just re-invite. I don't know how to extend.
Oh, okay. Let me say some of the things then that I've looked up, and I'll just scroll through these afterwards for everybody's efficacy. But you were asking what is the future of the book and book arts, and it became very interesting to me to Google and find, like, what? That's a good question, and it said that, everyone has been predicting the demise of the book. And in spite of that, in the past 5 years, it's not the biggest growth, but there was an 8% growth in book sales in the last 5 years. And that's not much, but it's something. But also, one of the publishers, Bloomsbury Publisher, said that they were that because people were buying things digitally, which they do make money off of, just not that much, but they began to want to try to make the book more special. And they, for instance, published The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, which I read, which is wonderful. And they did a special edition with sprayed edges and these beautiful opulent end papers. And so some of the publishers are going toward making more special books, which I think is really wonderful. And they also said that they have seen during COVID-19 a rise in the classics. A lot of people have gone back to the classics, but in particular, there is a rise in Black literature, in Native Son, in Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, in those kind of books that that made them go back and re-examine our history. And I think that's I'm really happy to hear that. So I think there's that. I think also in this isolation, that more tactile experience.
Yes.
I mean, between the Zooms and the screens and like, or I don't know if you saw The Social Dilemma, but getting away from a screen and being able to hold a book in your hand is really like a vacation, and also as a reader, I'm very visual, and like I like to know where the quotes are, or the things that I want to remember, Yeah, but I also find the block of print very pleasing, and the fonts that people choose and how they space the margins, and how large the book is and how it holds in your hand.
Yeah.
It just like goes on and on and on. It's just it's an entire experience. A book is,
Oh, this has been such a treat.
I was afraid. I didn't know if I was going to have too much or too little. So I did have, let's see, more. Oh, you were asking about Marin County and whether or not, and this year was my 15th year of showing artist books, and so I have a huge following in Marin. And then 3 years in, a woman named Eleanor Murray who's working with the Marin Museum of Contemporary Art suggested that they were going to do their altered book show as their annual fundraiser. And that has expanded it even more because in May or end of April, there's both their show and my show that people come from all over to see. So I would say, the other thing is so many artists who were working in other mediums began to play with the book. And some of them got really good at it too. Over the years, I've seen people handle glue so much better or be more innovative in things. So I would say, that Marin County is somewhat of a book savvy, as far as the book arts go, kind of county. And we're lucky because we always had lots of good writers as well. And it's great for me to meet all the people that love this stuff.
Well, thank you so much. I hesitate. I don't know what happens when it hits the hour, but
yeah. Why don't I just scroll until it ends?
That would be wonderful.
Unless there's another question. No, I can't do it. It's not scrolling anyway. Never mind. I forgot that I wasn't able to scroll through my catalog. Darn it.
Oh, you can't?
No. So
this is probably one of the more beautiful catalogs I have ever seen.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was just a treasure. We'll share this. This will be like gold, as you said, in the crevice.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I had one other thing. When I was doing my research, I wanted to tell people that when you buy books, and now that many of our small bookstores are closed, you can go to bookshop.org. And they will, they've donated over $7 million to small bookstores in the country. And you can order anything there that you can on Amazon. And, they're there for the support. So this is your new Amazon for books. It's called bookshop.org. And they are in support of small bookstores and publishers.
Great.
That's my little infomercial. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the gallery at some point. And best wishes to Emily. I told the boys I was talking to her, which was really fun. Eric says hi.
Oh, nice. It's good to see you. Come in.
I will. I will.
I'll
This is
look forward
incredible
to
treat.
seeing
You're very generous.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.